Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Ryan Watches a Movie. This is a bonus episode. With me today we have Kevin Rakestraw and Ryan Holes. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Pretty good.
So this week we're talking about a movie called The Ataxian. Now this is premiering at this year's Dances with Films Film Festival in Los Angeles. Actually, as we're recording this on a Sunday. It premiered yesterday, so Saturday, June 6th. Doesn't have a release date yet, but the reason that we're going to be talking about this movie is because it's about an individual by the name of Kyle Bryant who has a disease called Friedreich's Ataxia, and it's actually, if you've been listening to the show since the beginning, you'll know that Ryan has this exact same disease. Now, Ryan, why don't we start off by telling everybody kind of what Friedreich's Ataxia is?
It's a neurological disease that affects balance and coordination, and it gives you heart problems and all kinds of other problems.
It also affects your speech, too. So,
yeah.
If anyone's been wondering...
Basically, I sound like I'm drunk all the time and look like
it. Which has caused problems in the past, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a breathalyzer. When I was in high school, they gave me one at a football game because they thought my medical ID was made up.
Oh my God.
I remember that. I remember when that happened. That you had a fake medical alert bracelet.
Yep.
So, just it was so bizarre that this happened. So, like, we're covering Dances with Films this year. Actually, we've done it the last couple years, but we got an email about this film called The Ataxian, and I looked into it, and I was like, holy crap, this is Ryan's disease, FA, and it only affects, there's only 5,000 diagnosed people in the United States with this disease, so it's extremely rare. So I immediately saw it, and I was like, oh, we gotta talk about this movie, we gotta, maybe use this as an opportunity to raise some awareness about this disease, and it is a terminal illness. It's only going to get, there's no cure for it, there's no treatments for it currently, and it's degenerative, so it's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. So
yeah, I watched the second trailer for that documentary, and the one thing the one guy says is, imagine every day is the worst day of your life. And it reminded me of Office Space.
Yeah.
When they hypnotized that guy and the doctor dies.
What about today? Is today the worst day? Yes. Oh, man. Well, so what we're going to be doing today is we're actually going to talk to the directors Zack Bennett and Kevin Schlanser about the film, and we're also going to have Kyle Bryant on the show talking about his experiences. And really what this movie is about is Kyle Bryant and three other people, one of which has FA also. They did a race across America where they started in California and rode the entire way across the country in 9 days, I think it was. So we're going to be talking about the film as well as what the disease is and where they're at with treatments and cures and things like that. So let's go ahead and start with our first interview. These are pre-recorded. Ryan and I had a talk with the directors Zack Bennett and Kevin Schlanser. So let's go ahead and just jump right into that to begin with. Zack and Kevin, thank you so much for taking some time to join us. Now, you guys are the directors of The Ataxian, the film that we're talking about today. My first question is, I guess, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourselves and how you came to this film?
Well, we'll start in on the usual spiel here. So Kevin and I have known each other since we were little kids. We were on a first soccer team together. Kevin's dad was a coach, so we've known each other since we were about 5 years old. And we both we connected, at about 12, 13 years old. We were two of the only kids who had video cameras, and we were teaching ourselves how to edit when we were younger. And so ultimately, we both ended up moving to LA about 10 years ago. We were working, in the industry, making movies and so on and so forth. And about 5 years into it, we were really looking for something to do that we could sink our teeth into, something that we really, really, a story that we really wanted to tell. We'd done quite a bit of commercial work and so on and so forth. And so we were heading down to LA from a Christmas break one time, and I was kind of ranting in the car, just sort of putting it out to the universe, that I really, really wanted something to do that I could just fall in love with and a story that we could tell. And so Kevin, he gets this phone call. It couldn't have been less than a week or two later. And Kevin, take it from there.
Yeah, so actually we were roommates at the time, and I got a call from a good family friend, and she introduced me to Kyle's story, told me that he was going to do the race and what he was dealing with, and, we just talked about what Zach had just mentioned, and so I came to him, and immediately we were just both completely, on board. We knew this is what we were going to do. We had to tell Kyle's story.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is your guys' first feature-length film, and it's your first documentary that you directed as well, right?
That's correct.
And was this a challenging feat to kind of go into the world of documentary filmmaking, as a first-timer?
Yeah. It's probably, I'd say to date, the most difficult thing we've ever done logistically. It was fairly absurd. Kevin's a brilliant cinematographer, and at the time I knew very little about cinematography. My skills were elsewhere, and we always make the joke that I could have been getting f-stops off the back of trucks. I really had no idea what was going on camera-wise, so it was it's where I learned a great deal technically. Both Kevin and I did at the time, but we kind of. It was the first time we'd ever done anything that big, and we were in our early 20s, and it was definitely, to date, still the most difficult thing I've ever done.
Oh, yeah, and on the other side of that coin, Zach is a brilliant producer, and without him having that knowledge and skill set, it would have not been made.
Now, when was the year that how long was the shooting for this whole process?
Well, the race across America that they took part in was in 2010, June 2010.
And then how long? How long before and after the race did you also shoot?
Well, so one of the things we did that I wanted to do artistically, because when you get into a film and you start editing, you get really close to it, you get really buried, you lose perspective, and so obviously our race was only 9 days or so, and we'd done some interviews before the race. And one of the things the way I set it up as a producer is I told Kevin and Sarah, our other editor, I said, look, you guys go in. It took us about 6 months to organize the footage, and I told Kevin and Sarah, go in, do your first edit. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to do anything, and we'll give you guys your first edit. So they delivered their first edit to me. I watched it with the freshest pair of eyes we had in the group. And from that point, it was another couple of years because we had to go get other interviews. We had to fill in pieces of the film that weren't there. We had to connect characters that we didn't know were going to be characters when we started shooting the race. So it was, over a period of years that we pieced together this film. And of course, the saying is good, fast, cheap, pick two. And we didn't really have any money, and we wanted it to be good. So we knew it was going to take a long time.
I noticed that this is something I always ask people when I notice it in any movies, but I did notice that you used some licensed music in this. Was that an issue, getting the permission to use some of the music that you had in your movie?
Well, one of the other things that I told Sarah and Kevin was the only asset we have with this film is to make it as good as we possibly can. And so in the early days, I said, you know what, let's just use the music that we really want to use to tell this story, and let's hope that we have a film that's good enough to get these artists behind the film when it comes down to having to get permission to use them. And that strategy so far has seemed to pay off.
That's great.
Yeah, honestly, I was the most. Music is everything to me personally. So I was incredibly excited that we got the licenses we did. Those are bands that I've loved since I was before high school. In high school, I grew up with all that music.
Yeah, the music is, Kevin and I, the music is the heartbeat. It's the soul of the film, and it's the most important thing to both Kevin and I.
Yeah, that was like one thing that really stood out to me like right away. I was like, wow, they got some really good tracks on here, and that's impressive, because a lot of times it's really difficult, especially for small independent movies to get that kind of music in there. What I want to talk about now is like just the actual logistics of shooting the race itself. Now, it seemed like were you guys in the same like van as the rest of the team, or did you drive separate? How did that work logistically?
Yeah, well, actually, so after the race started, getting actually ready to go was a whole another story that I'll let Zach tell you. But during the actual race, we had a crew of about four or five guys. We had an RV that we'd rented. And yeah, we had 3 cameramen guys on the crew, and we'd all rotate in and out of our RV, which was following them, and the 2 vans that they were in. So we would just rotate like that, yeah.
Now, did you have any kind of issues? Because I know you're shooting night and day and pretty much 24/7. Were you running into any kind of challenges as far as like lighting and stuff like that while shooting?
No, absolutely. There's so much footage that was unusable, and sound was a huge issue for us because we didn't have a professional audio guy on the crew, and yeah, we're so lucky that we got some of the best moments that we captured were luckily just in the right light. With quiet ambience, it was really incredible that we got a lot of the moments we did.
a lot of what happened on this film was, I'd say it was 90% disaster and chaos and pain and suffering mixed with peaks of miracles that just came out of the blue. And it was basically disaster after disaster, and then a miracle would happen, and then we'd get the courage and the strength to keep going through all the rest of the disasters, and then another miracle would pop up, and that seemed to be sort of what was happening throughout most of the race.
Were there any like big issues that you had that maybe didn't make it into the movie? Any kind of like one of these disasters?
Well, that whole story is probably going to end up being our first narrative feature, because every time we try to tell the story of us trying to make the movie, it ends up taking 2.5, 3 hours. So,
yeah, there's nothing in the movie that is about us having. We wanted the whole story. We focused on was Kyle and the team in the race, and some of the families that are in the film. So all of our struggles we didn't highlight at all, but there were quite a few.
On that note, it was kind of it was interesting how it worked out, because obviously we were inspired by Kyle to make the film in the first place. And when we were going through all of our problems as filmmakers, all we really had to do was sort of look at Kyle and watch what he was doing and how he was behaving, and we kind of would remind ourselves like, okay, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. And so it was kind of, I don't know, symbiotic maybe. Kyle says it in the movie, it's kind of a circular process or something, but he really helped us get the film done. And so we owe a lot to him for just being a great leader and an inspiring person.
Yeah, I can imagine. Let's talk about, so the film is premiering at Dances with Films this Saturday, June 6th. Do you have the time and place that's going to be premiering? I just don't have it in front of me.
It's on Saturday at 7:15 p.m. at the
TCL Chinese 6. Yeah. It's right at Hollywood and Highland there, right in the heart of Hollywood, same place where they do the Oscars. We're looking at the Dolby Theater right now through a window. So it's a lot of fun. And right at the heart of Hollywood, 7:15 TCL Chinese 6.
And Kyle's going to be there as well, right?
Yes.
Kyle, Sean, the whole team are going to be there, and most of the families that are in the film.
That's fantastic. Guys, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know you have a lot to plan for. I want to thank you again so much for taking some moments to talk to us about the film, and best of luck.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for watching it. Yeah.
Thank you again, Zach and Kevin. Before we get into our interview with Kyle, let's talk a little bit more about the movie itself. Now, Ryan and Kevin, both of you guys have seen the movie. Ryan, why don't we get your thoughts on the movie first?
It raised awareness, which is exactly what I wanted it to do, because 9 out of 10 people have no idea what Friedreich ataxia is. So I'm just happy that more people know about it, and hopefully eventually that leads to more donations for research and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those. It's very inspirational documentary. I mean, it's very heavy on the inspiration, but I think Kyle Bryant is kind of inherently an inspirational type of person. Kevin, what were your thoughts on the film?
It was interesting because I think we talked about this a little bit, but since we already know about the disease, I found it much more interesting watching Kyle Bryant, because it was like watching Ryan from years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like all of his movements and everything, it looked exactly the same, which was just, it was extremely difficult to watch. I don't think I've cried that much watching a movie in a long time.
Yeah.
It's a bit rough.
What about you, Ryan? Did it affect you emotionally?
Not really, no. Because not many things do.
Ryan,
Were you just watching it like, been there, done that?
My mom and grandma and my friends will have had some out-of-box of tissues for the movie. I had nothing.
you're like, whatever.
Yeah.
How many times did you break to just check your phone?
Yeah,
While everyone else is like breaking down and crying.
everyone else is breaking down. You're
my
perusing
phone was
Facebook.
charging.
Oh, your phone was charging. Okay. Right.
I'm just imagining you like 10 minutes in, just your face retreating to your crotch with your phone.
You just have that pussies. You look up and you look and see everybody crying. You just go pussies and then go back down to your phone.
Well, it was pretty interesting too. I mean, I've never met anyone else that has my disease, and it was pretty interesting to compare where he's at, and where I'm at, and where other people in the movie are at.
Well,
It's really interesting that you say that, because I remember that, I was always thinking that you've never met someone else and it was extremely rare and everything. And then they have like a whole symposium for it.
Right.
And I'm
yeah.
thinking, oh, this is just more on Ryan. Like, he just never went to the symposium. Like, you could easily
It's
meet
more
other
his
people.
fault.
Not
You're
to
like,
mention that
It's in
Kyle
Philly.
lives 2 hours away.
Yeah, it's in Philly, and I'm just like, wait a second, why hasn't he met anyone else?
Yeah, that's a good point. But let's take this time to actually jump into our interview with Kyle. So this interview we previously recorded, and this one also has Kevin in it. Although Kevin, I don't think you really talked that much in this one.
No, I don't do. If you listen closely, you'll probably hear me laugh at one point.
Yeah, I think you laugh once or twice.
And that's it. That's what I bring.
Okay. Let's go ahead and jump into our interview with Kyle Bryant, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the movie. Thank you so much for coming on the show and just talking with us a little bit. Now, I'm sure that you were already informed, but our co-host here, Ryan, also has FA. So when we first heard about this movie, we were just instantly jumping on it. I was wondering if we could just start off with, and I know you discussed this in the movie, but what made you decide to do this bike run across the country?
So I really, forever, even before I was diagnosed with FA, I just always wanted to do more. I wanted to do something huge. I've just had that in my soul, if you will. And FA has given me the urgency. It's given me the excuse to live now, because my abilities continue to deteriorate every day. We're working on research, obviously, through the Friedreich Ataxia Research Alliance, but so I have hope for that, but at the same time, I want to do something huge now. And that's kind of, the big picture of where the idea for RAM came from. I started riding my bike in 2007 and felt like it was something I was kind of good at, and I could do it. While I couldn't do a lot of other sports as easily, I could get on my bike and ride for miles and miles, and so it just made sense. I wanted to do something huge. This was something that I could do, and we really actually didn't know if it was if it was going to be doable before we finished. But that was kind of the fun of it. So anyway, that's kind of where it came from.
Now, you were diagnosed. When were you diagnosed? How old are you now? And how old were you when you were diagnosed?
I'm 33 now. I was diagnosed when I was 17 years old.
Okay.
And so it took almost a year for us to get a diagnosis.
Oh, that's almost the exact same as me.
Yeah, so Ryan was diagnosed when you were he was 16? Right? Yeah, so he was diagnosed when he was 16, and you're 33 now, right, Ryan?
Yep.
You're same age, yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right.
You did the film takes place when you did the ride in 2010. Has there been any developments in the disease in you at this point where can you still ride a bike? Are you still mobile like that?
So I went for a ride this morning. So yeah, I'm still riding a whole lot. I mean, I ride a trike, so I'm unable to ride an upright bicycle because of the balance issues. But that was the same for RAM in 2010. So I'm still able to ride, and since the ride, one thing that's different is that I now drive with hand controls. So I'm unable to drive with my feet anymore. And before RAM, I was able to walk. I don't know, if I really tried, I could walk 100 yards or so. Now, I probably couldn't walk more than a couple feet, so I use a wheelchair full time. Mm-hmm. And so those are kind of some of the major developments in my condition.
Now, Ryan, how old were you, Ryan, when you ended up switching over to the wheelchair?
18, almost 19.
So he was 19 when he switched over to the wheelchair. Ryan, I think you had some questions regarding, because actually Ryan never spoke to anyone else that had FA before. So this is all completely new for him. Ryan, I think you had some questions about, just his day-to-day life. Did you want to ask those?
Well, I'm going to ask stuff, but I will jump around because that's how my mind works.
Well, just ask your first question.
What doctors do you see regularly?
So when I was in California, I grew up in Northern California, and I lived here until about 5 years ago. And I saw Dr. Perlman at UCLA. She is incredible, and she's been working with ataxia for 30 years. And so I would go down at first. When I was first diagnosed, I was seeing her about every 6 months. And then, as time went on, I was seeing her about once a year for an annual checkup. And now that I'm on the East Coast, I live in Pennsylvania, and I see Dr. David Lynch at Children's Hospital, Philadelphia.
Okay. And do you see multiple specialists, cardiologists and those people as well?
Yeah, so at CHOP and at UCLA, Dr. Perlman was my central point of contact for all my med stuff, and she would send me out for a cardiac appointment, and she would have me go get blood work. So, but now I have a cardiologist that really watches my heart, obviously, and a lot of other hearts. But I have a cardiologist, but it's kind of the same deal where Dr. Lynch is my point of contact. Everything goes through him, and then all the stuff is kind of managed out from that point. And he tells me what I need to do, and all my advice comes from him. So.
Now, is that how it is for you too, Ryan?
I only have a family doctor, and I have a cardiologist and a neurologist, but I don't see them unless something major changes.
I would highly recommend Dr. Perlman at UCLA. She is super awesome, and she's up on all the current research and just sort of managing symptoms too. She just has so much experience with so many different people with the FA specifically, and so I don't know. I personally think that's a big benefit in doctor, which most doctors really haven't heard of FA much at all. They're like, oh my gosh, I think I saw somebody with FA like twice, maybe, and so seeing somebody who sees only people with FA or ataxia, I think that's a huge benefit, like from my perspective at least. So
now maybe I guess I could pose this question to either one of you, but are the cases of FA on the rise in the country? Because I know that it's limited to just several thousand people in the United States that have it. Are we seeing more cases of it pop up?
It's a double recessive trait. So, like, both of my parents they're carriers, but they had no symptoms, so they had no idea. Mm-hmm. And then after it was a 25% chance that I would get it. And like I have an older brother who he's not even a carrier. And that's very fortunate. He has 2 young kids now, and they're absolutely beautiful, so we're happy for that. So I wouldn't say that, it's on the rise, because it's not like infectious or anything. One in 100 people are carriers and have no idea until it affects their family. So really, it's something to be aware of for sure, because think about it. You've got more than 100 people that you know.
Right.
And 1 out of every 100 people is a carrier of the disease. And if 2 of those people get together, there's a 1/4 chance that they will produce a child with the FA. And so statistically, there are 5,000 people in the U.S. that have FA, and there are 15,000 people worldwide. So the Friedreich's Ataxia Research Alliance, I'm on staff at FARA, and we have a patient registry. So anytime there's like a clinical trial or people need information about FA, we email out. So people register on there, and they give us stuff like the contact info, but they also give us like the number repeat of GAA repeats they have, and the symptoms and the progression of the disease and all this different stuff. So whenever there's a clinical trial, we can email them out. We send them an email, and they can volunteer for the clinical trial. And in that registry, we have about 1,500 people. And so it is, it's a matter of raising the awareness so that people know that there's this resource, and that we're working on clinical trials for a possible treatment and cure. And it's only a matter of time. And so, it's a matter of getting as many people registered in that registry as possible. Because, like I said, statistically, there is 5,000 people, but there's only a couple thousand in the registry, and that's one of our major things, is to get as many people as we can in the registry.
I'm going to make sure that we include links in the show notes for all of this information too. So anybody that's listening that wants to find out more information, they can go to the provided links. Now, as far as awareness, I see you doing a lot to raise awareness about this disease. Have there been any more advancements in like research and stuff? Because I know years ago we were looking at, there was like some stem cell research that was proposed, but it wasn't happening here in the States. Are more people aware of FA is my question.
Yeah. So one of our initiatives at FARA is to grow the scientific field, and so we held our very first, before I was around, before I was at FARA, we held our first scientific conference in 1999, I believe. And there was 80 scientists, and the only criteria for the scientists being able to get into the meeting was they could spell Friedreich's ataxia. Like, it was really hard to find people who knew about it. Well, we just had an international conference in the UK, along with Ataxia UK and Ataxia Ireland, and a few other partners go far in Italy, and we had over 300 scientists there. And the amazing thing is, a lot of the talks were about clinical trials and about drugs going into patients and how to design an effective clinical trial with very few patients, just because our population is small, and how to design a trial that is statistically significant with only 40 or 50 patients. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's really amazing that we've come so far from, the gene was just discovered in, I believe, in 1996, 1997, and we're already at the point where we're at clinical trials, and drugs going into patients with potential to become an effective treatment for the disease. We've also got a lot of effort behind and money behind gene therapy, and that can be seen for sure as a sort of curative approach to FA. It goes in, some of the gene therapy approaches, they go in and they replace bad DNA with good DNA. And, to me, that's as close to a cure as we can get. And, it's looking really promising right now. It's quite a few years away because, it's a long way to go from a mouse to a human, from the lab to a person. But it's very, very promising.
That's great. Now, Ryan, did you have any other questions about, his experiences with?
Well, first of all, you said you live in Philadelphia.
Yep.
Wow. That's like 2 hours away from there. Do you participate in the Philadelphia bike ride for FA?
I'm actually the director of all of our bike rides nationwide, and our Philly ride was our very first one that we did. It's probably 15 miles outside the city, and it's amazing because it's during a weekend when we have our patient symposium put on by the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia in collaboration with FARA. And so families come from all over the country, all over the world, and participate in the symposium and hear the latest science. And then the day before, we have the ride. So all these people are in town, and it's an amazing experience to me. I mean, there's 25, 30 families affected by FA that are at the ride. And it's really amazing that, we're able to raise the funds we do. That's our biggest grossing ride for fundraising. We raised $250,000 last year at this ride because there's so many passionate people that come out, so many families that are affected by the disease and really want to make an impact.
Wow, that's incredible. Ryan, is that the one that you have the person ride for you? Oh, okay. Yeah. So we donated to that and all that stuff. So, one of the things.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. One of the things that we always give Ryan a hard time about is the amount that he sleeps. And I have to ask, is with your experiences, do you sleep a lot more than a normal person?
So for me, personally, it's not as much of an issue, but for probably, the vast majority of FA patients, that is not uncommon. So real quick, the DNA is a series of codes, and one of those codes is GAA. And you and most of the general population, have less than 30 repeats of GAA in your DNA. Me and Ryan have many more. I have 450 repeats. Some of my friends have up to 1,500 repeats of GAA at that code in their DNA. When that code gets decoded, it makes a protein called frataxin. And I don't make enough frataxin. Ryan doesn't make enough frataxin. And the role of frataxin is to combine with a couple other molecules in the cells of our body to make energy. And so lack of frataxin equals lack of energy. And
okay.
So one of the more prominent symptoms in FA in many people is chronic fatigue. And that's where you get a lot of sleep. And Ryan, I don't blame you at all. There's so many people that sleep just like you do.
Man, so now I can't rag on him anymore about sleeping too much.
It's not his fault.
Yeah, and he's always like, "Oh, it's my disease," and I'm like, "Dude, you're just lazy."
We were wrong all this time. I feel terrible.
My next question was about your hands, how, did you go through a trance to get that?
So I ride a trike that I power with my feet. There are a lot of FA patients that do use hand cycles, but I'm still able to use my legs a lot, and so that's how I ride. It's got 3 wheels, so I don't have to worry about balance, but I still power with my legs. And so my very first trike I bought in 2006, and it was a birthday present to myself. I called up my dad, and I was like, "Hey, can I borrow $2,500?" I paid him back, but so I bought that. My second trike, the one that I rode on Race Across America in this movie, the Challenge Athletes Foundation funded that. I applied, and they gave me a check for $2,000 to buy this trike. And then the current trike that I ride, it was a gift from Catrike, the manufacturers who make this trike, and so that's kind of a little bit about my trike.
Now, the new one that you have, you said you steer with your hands, right?
Right. Yeah, I power it with my feet and I steer with my hands, and that it's been the same since I started.
Okay.
Do you find that doing more activities with your legs keeps them operable?
Absolutely, 100%. I think so. Just circulation. I find that if I sit in my wheelchair for a few days and I haven't ridden for a while, my feet swell up, and then I go for a ride, and all of a sudden they're not swollen anymore. And so, I mean, just circulation, I think, but also just having the muscles firing, I think that FA is a use it or lose it kind of situation. The reason that our legs are affected the most is because we're unable to use them. They don't work as well, and so we don't use them as much, and those muscles deteriorate. And I think 100% that, using, and, that's one of the things that drew me to the trike originally. It's because I was able to power it with my legs, and I was like, well, I can't use these for much else anymore, so I might as well do this, So.
Well, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us. Ryan, do you have any final questions for Kyle?
Not that I'm sure I'll probably think of more later.
Well, you're going to have his email now, so you can email him.
Absolutely.
Thank you again so much for coming on and just talking with us. Best of luck with the film. I'm really excited about the premiere. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So much. Yeah.
Thank you so much again, Kyle. One of the things that really got me in this was they interview a young family that have 2 kids, both with FA, very young kids too.
Yeah.
And that was like when they were talking to them and when they revealed that their very young infant daughter also has it, that was like really heavy.
See, there's different, I guess you call it, different levels, and I feel kind of fortunate that I'm in as quote-unquote good shape as I am, because it could be like some of the other people that were shocked.
Right, yeah, it seems like a really tricky disease because it appears to affect people at different rates, and I guess that's what Kyle was saying about how the what is it, like the genes are the same. What did he say?
Yeah.
That, like they're the same in
It's
people with the
all
disease.
about the amount of free Ataxian you produce, I think.
It's like repeating, like you have like certain repeating strains
Well,
of it, or?
in order to, and my neurologist told me this when I was 18.
Which they were probably getting this from like no information whatsoever.
WebMD. They were consulting WebMD.
In order, I forget what I was gonna say.
Oh, sorry about that. I just stepped in, killed it, killed your train of thought.
It seems like the people that have the disease, that have more repeating strains or whatever, maybe it affects them more greatly.
That's what I was gonna say. My neurologist told me that in order to have this, both of my parents have 3 carriers, but in me, both genes have to be, one has to be dominant, I think, and one has to be recessive. And apparently that only happens numerically 1 out of every 4 times. So, statistically, if I had 3 brothers and sisters, none of them would have it.
Right. And Kyle has an older brother who doesn't have it either.
Yeah.
And his older brother has kids who don't have it. So it's an extremely rare thing. Like everything has to be set up, perfectly for it to happen.
So, Ryan,
What's up?
are you, because I think we talked about it a little bit, did you get that trike yet? You getting out there?
I'm working on it
Are
currently.
you? Oh, yeah.
I think you should absolutely get one. Even if, I don't know, do they make stationary trikes? Is that something?
They make the.
Because
I'm sure you can modify it into one.
Or you could just
take the wheels off.
You could probably just get some sort of device that is like a stationary bike that you just move, that you just sit regularly and move with your feet.
They make a thing for a table like that, where it's like the crank and the handbars. That's it. And you just sit at a table and crank. But that would, I feel like,
no,
that wouldn't make you want to go outside or do anything, just sit at the table.
Yeah, but I'm talking about your legs and feet specifically. Like, I'm pretty sure they must make, for people that are in rehab and stuff, they must make things that you can actually sit in your wheelchair and crank with your feet, you know, to work out your legs. I feel like they must make something like that. But if you didn't want to drop $2,400 on a trike,
which I think you should.
I think you
should. Which is
too.
Kind of crazy to think about. Like, this race across America. Like, I mean, I can ride a bike, but I would never think to ride a bike across America. That's just fucking insane. But then to do it in a trike,
yeah,
which I would imagine is much, much harder, much difficult than just a regular bike, you know, because you're laying flat and you can't really move your body to like stretch it out or anything.
Yeah, with a bike, you can change your posture, you can change your position. You know, you can stand, you can sit, you can kind of shift around.
I would imagine in a trike going up a hill would be awful.
Yeah. I don't know how those trikes work. If it's like I would imagine it's some sort of gear system like a regular bike.
I think they have intelligent gears. Like, I think the gears know when to automatically switch or not. I don't know for sure. But I think so.
I think you should definitely get one of those.
Plus, he has this bike thing that connect directly to the pedals.
Well, I think you'll definitely
keep his feet there.
Well, you'll definitely need that.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about it and just how stiff your legs are. I think you if you get one, you're gonna have to practice like crazy to get the movements down.
You gotta have this strapped in too, because you know how difficult it is wrangling those legs.
Exactly.
Because those shits are strong. They're ridiculous.
I think one of the problems is that they lock. His legs lock, and you're like, wait a minute, what is going on here?
And it makes no sense because they're so damn thin.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't know how they work.
I think it's just that his joints lock, and it's stuck. They're stuck in place.
Dude. I'm just remembering all the times having to stop on the sidewalk and just imagining what other people are seeing when me and Adam are trying to wrangle feet and legs.
And it always happens in the worst possible place, like the most populated city areas with the most people and the least amount of room. His legs will just freaking do their little pop thing and just stick straight out.
Good Lord.
I guess that's just a byproduct of the disease, and the sleep thing was interesting too. I mean, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense.
We forgot to ask him if he sleeps in a ball though.
Yeah, that's true. With his shoes on, with his shoes and socks on.
I don't in that movie. He walks around barefoot. I would freak out. That would freak me out a lot.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
Super sensitive feet.
I have a feeling if you started working out your legs and your feet, I think maybe that sensitivity would go down a bit. Because I'm wondering if it has to do, because he mentioned that like his feet swell up and stuff, and I'm wondering if some of that sensitivity has something to do with.
Like how much circulation does Ryan's legs get?
Right, exactly. Like I'm wondering if it's a circulation thing.
Plus they're cooped up in those sneakers, in your kicks all day. You gotta get them shits out, Ryan.
I wonder if there is a way to like condition your feet to not be so sensitive.
If there was, I would love it. And I also don't know about it.
Well, I think this was an enlightening film for anybody that isn't aware of this disease, or even you, Ryan, who have the disease but you didn't really know anybody that also had it and their experiences. So it is interesting to see like other people that have this very rare disease and see how they like the issues that they have and the problems that they have, and to find that it's pretty much the same as the kind of shit that you're going through.
Correct. I also want to add the fact that I don't know if this is appropriate time,
Probably not.
but my friend Corey is doing the bike ride again in September. Or I guess this year it's in October.
Okay, so
With the Philly ride Ataxia?
Yeah.
Oh,
He
shit.
just told me like 2 days ago.
Are you going to it?
Yeah, I want to.
You gonna meet up?
Because
Gonna meet
I
up with
want
Kyle?
to talk to the Kyle guy face to face.
so again, I'll put a link. I'll also put a link in the show notes for the page, the donation page for Corey, Ryan's rider in the Ataxia. What's it called?
Ride Ataxia.
Ride Ataxia.
We need to get you your trike, and we need to get you in that ride.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, Ride Ataxia is kind of like it's where you can pledge money to a rider who is it's all going to is it going to Farah?
Yeah, the thing Kyle works for, yeah.
And which is the Friedreich's Ataxia Research Alliance? Is it Alliance?
Correct.
Yeah.
So all the proceeds of the ride are going to go to that, so you can donate and help fund research for this FA. I don't think I even ever heard of it referred to as FA until this movie.
My neurologist did when I was a kid, but that's it. I'm just really excited that it gets awareness out there and people actually know what it is instead of not knowing anything.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever met anyone that's known about it.
Well, yeah,
outside of like us, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was one thing I wanted to ask Kyle, is if he frequently, like how many times a day he has to explain what his disease is and what it's all about, because
I wish Ryan would have asked him if he ever had a breathalyzer done.
Yeah, it's just nobody knows about this thing, and it's just such a terrible disease. We'll be sure to post updates on the Ataxian, like when it's coming out and hitting VOD and available for everyone to see. Hopefully it won't be too long. Hopefully it'll find a distributor, or maybe they'll even self-distribute and get it out there. But any closing thoughts, Ryan, Kevin?
Thanks to everyone.
Yeah.
Again, for you guys and them for making this movie. It's just all really cool.
Yeah, I think it's great. All right. Thank you again, Zach, Kevin, Kyle, for coming on the show, talking to us about the movie. Once again, I will plug all the links for everything are going to be in the show notes. We'll put a link to Farah in there. We'll put a link to the Ride Ataxia, any other relevant topics that you might want to look into. And I think you should look into this. One of the questions that I didn't ask when we were talking about the fact that this is like genetics, and that the mother and the father have to both be not carriers, but have the specific code structure.
They're referred to as carriers.
Do they? Okay. Well then, I'm wondering if there's a way to test for that. You know, like if you decide that you want to have kids, if there's a way to test to see if
there is.
Okay.
But when they ran up to us, like Kyle, when I first found out not much existed, and the only test that I could get was sending blood to the Mayo Clinic and having them test it. But they said since I came back positive, they already knew my parents were both carriers, so they wouldn't be tested because it would be kind of pointless.
Well, yeah, but
yeah, I think there is a test for being a carrier.
Okay. Well, that's also really good to know because, you know, you definitely don't want to risk something like that. So, all right. Well, I think that'll wrap it up for this bonus episode. You can send us your questions. Podcast@filmpulse.net is the address. You can follow us on Twitter @FilmPulseNet, @FilmPulseKevin, and @MyLegsDon'tWork. And you can take a look at our Patreon page, patreon.com/FilmPulse. Consider donating, helping support the show. For Kevin Rakestraw and Ryan Holes, my name's Adam Patterson, and we'll see you on Thursday for another episode of Ryan Watches a Movie.
See you later.